Hey guys, welcome back to the channel where we cover all things real estate in the DC area. In this video, we're going to be covering the differences between DC and Northern Virginia. Not too long ago, we had another video, which was Maryland versus Virginia, and we had a lot of views on that video, and we received a lot of requests to compare DC to Northern Virginia, which we're going to cover today. Okay, getting into it. Now, when I talk about DC versus Northern Virginia, it's important to define what Northern Virginia is. So for the areas that we cover are Alexandria City, Arlington County, Fairfax City, Fairfax County, as well as Falls Church City. Now that's a pretty large, expansive area of Northern Virginia compared to DC. So the first item of comparison is politics. I know DC is a political fishbowl on itself. There's a lot of national politics, but speaking at a local level, it's very blue across the board. DC is certainly a one-party rule area, and Northern Virginia, with all due respect, at the local level is completely blue as well. You might find specks of red here or there, but it is very few and far in between. So take that for what you will. It's a very blue area in general. You can look at congressional maps for Virginia and see that as well. So one-party rule at the local level. Virginia has some state influence with a Republican governor for a few other things that affect the entire state, but local level, all blue across the board. Okay, getting into education, focusing specifically on the K through 12 public systems. Virginia is currently ranked number 5. Last year it was ranked number 4, and DC is ranked number 27. Last year it was ranked 30th in the nation, so it is up and coming still to this day. Now, some of the important differences in the public school systems in Northern Virginia versus DC is DC has a charter system as well as public, so those are privately ran, publicly funded school systems where you can lottery into those programs. You are still bound to your home school in DC as well, so you're guaranteed enrollment in your local school, but you can lottery into other charter schools that might have an interest for your child. There are systems like that, there are programs like that, I should say, in Northern Virginia as well. If you're looking to do a language program for French or Chinese, Japanese, anything like that, those are available in Northern Virginia as well, but it is not as prevalent as an entire school until you get to the higher grades for like AAP programs that you would find in Northern Virginia. So rankings alone, Northern Virginia edges out DC on this one. In terms of higher education though, DC is certainly no slouch. It's home to universities such as Georgetown, American University, you've got GW and Howard University, where in Northern Virginia you have other things like George Mason and George Mason's Law School in Arlington. So I would give DC certainly the edge when it comes to higher education, universities, the draw there for that. But in terms of specifically public schools, rankings alone will win out for Northern Virginia. Okay, buying real estate in DC versus Northern Virginia. Now, I'll lead with it depends completely upon the lifestyle in which you want. Right? If you want to have a vibrant downtown environment, you would consider DC, or maybe you're going to consider something off of the Orange Line corridor if you want that. If you want single family homes with a lot of space, maybe you're going to look at North Arlington, maybe you look at McLean, Great Falls, parts of Alexandria. In DC, there's only a couple neighborhoods that have really large lots and green space, and they're very expensive. Now, when we go into the pricing here, we look at as close as we can get apples to apples. For single family homes, the last 3 months, the median price point in DC was at $1.1 million, and in Northern Virginia, it's at $925,000. But that really depends upon the area. In McLean, 1.1 is going to feel like a steal. You could pay more than that sometimes just for the dirt and a quarter acre. Other areas of Northern Virginia, it might feel overpriced. Other areas, it's going to feel like a steal. So it's hard to compare there. It really depends on the lifestyle that you want to live for that. Certainly if you want a more urban lifestyle, if you don't mind being closer to people, DC's your vibe. Or parts of Arlington, certainly around where they're building a lot in National Landing. If you want a lot more space, then Northern Virginia is probably going to be what you want to have. Now, in terms of landlord-tenant relationships, if you're an investor, DC is certainly more tenant-friendly than Virginia is. Virginia is definitely a landlord-friendly state. And I have clients that actually own property in DC and they have had it vacant for several years now because they were tired of tenant headaches and they were afraid of having tenants that they couldn't get rid of. They are looking to sell their property soon, thankfully, but just know that that does occur in DC from time to time where you have people who they would rather have a property vacant than to deal with tenant headaches. Hey guys, if you're getting any value out of this video, do me a favor, Hit the like button. That tells YouTube you like this video and helps push it out to more people just like you. Okay, getting into everyone's favorite topic, taxes. Now, DC actually has a favorable tax rate at the property tax level against Virginia, and DC does not have a personal property tax. And you might ask, well, what's a personal property tax? Personal property tax essentially is a tax on your vehicles every year. Northern Virginia jurisdictions do it very well. Typically, it's around 5% they hit you for every year of its assessed value. And what's the formula for that? It changes year over year, so you kind of have to read between the lines there. You do get breaks in Virginia if you're in the military and a couple other special circumstances, but you do not pay those in DC at all. Now, Virginia does have favorable personal income tax rates. They go between 2 and 5.75%, and in DC, it starts at 4% when you earn around $10,000, going up to 10.75%. So it's a kind of a mixed bag. If you have a higher income, maybe Virginia's better. If you're going to have a lower income, or maybe your income isn't directly as active income, maybe DC's better for you with holding property there. Okay, getting into business and economy. Both areas, I would define them as booming right now. Northern Virginia is home to 14 Fortune 500 companies, so a ton of private employment. And DC is obviously home to the federal government and all the agencies that come with that. Now, some of the little differences that you find at the local level where you live, it would be, say, downtown DC, a lot of shuttered restaurants, shops, bars, things like that since COVID in the downtown areas, where you're not going to see that in Northern Virginia. And the downtown areas where people still work, those areas are like COVID never happened. They are still extremely active. A lot of that has to do with people not coming to work all the time. Still, it's only about maybe 40% of the workforce is coming into the office every week in DC, where in Virginia, I don't think that really matters just with how active everything is. So something to keep in mind, especially if you're looking to live near the downtown areas of DC, that it is still rebuilding since COVID with a lot of those restaurants and shops. It's not quite there yet, but Virginia is still super busy. Now, getting into culture and nightlife activities, things like that, DC is going to kind of run away with this one. You obviously have the Smithsonian, that whole museum complex, all the little things that you can see there. And nightlife, you've got a lot more going on in DC than Northern Virginia as a whole. If you were to just look at, say, the Orange Line corridor, yeah, there's a lot of nightlife on that. But you don't see a ton of nightlife in McLean, Great Falls, Alexandria. You just don't. Where DC has a lot of clubs that are still open. I know we talked about a lot of restaurants and shops shuttered downtown. It's not the case with clubs and nightlife going on in DC. That is completely back to normal. So DC is going to win out in terms of culture, amenities, things as a whole. Northern Virginia still has a lot of charm to it, has a lot of history as well, but in terms of going out and doing things, DC is going to win this one. Okay, getting into parks and rec. DC has the #1 park system ranked in the United States, but Northern Virginia is no slouch either. Arlington has the #5 ranked park system in the United States. But what does that really mean? All right, there's a lot of green space, there's a lot of parks, playgrounds, tot lots, splash pads, pools, all those amenities. You've got a ton of that in DC, pretty much in every neighborhood. You've got a lot of that in Northern Virginia, but it's a bit more spread out. So it's kind of lifestyle you want to have. If you want to enjoy a lot of hiking and really long and go out, then maybe Great Falls, Northern Virginia is for you. If you want to be walkable to a lot of parks, playgrounds, if you want to take your kid to the local splash pad, maybe DC is better for you. Really depends on the kind of lifestyle you're looking to live. DC is going to win out on this one just because everything's closer and it has a higher ranking. But again, it's the kind of lifestyle you want to have. So for me, it's kind of a wash. Take it for what you will, but DC technically wins this one. Okay, getting into traffic. Now, you might think it's hard to compare the traffic between DC and Northern Virginia, and trying to be as unbiased as possible. It's really not. Northern Virginia is a hot mess. All right, it is home to some of the worst stretches of traffic in the country. DC is a major city. It's always going to be busy. It's always going to be hard to get around, especially with all the lights. But DC has a huge infrastructure of public transportation. You've got Metro Rail, Metro Bus, you've got e-scooters, you've got city bikes, you've got the ability to use streetcars and a bunch of other avenues to get around town without having to drive yourself, knowing that traffic is kind of what it is in a major city. But Northern Virginia, it has some infrastructure for metros, right? There's some areas like Arlington has a lot of that, but McLean doesn't really have a ton of metro access to it. It has a station or two, but not a lot of people in McLean commute to the station to come into town. They drive. Great Falls certainly has no metro access. Alexandria is good in parts, but weak in others. So I would actually give DC the edge in traffic on this one. If you're living in town, working in town, it's going to be fairly easy to get around. You're not going to really notice traffic too much. It's going to be a grind on this block or that block. But if you're commuting from Northern Virginia to DC, as I have in the past, life will be measured in minutes or in songs for you on your commute. So it is what it is there. I personally think the traffic is always kind of atrocious and just I'm used to it. But DC for me is going to win in terms of traffic against Northern Virginia. Into retirement. Now, it's a little harder to compare this one apples to apples because DC is a city. So when I looked into it, US News had DC ranked number 82 in terms of best cities to retire, so not very well high up on the list. Virginia was ranked number 1 by Wallet Hub. It was also ranked very high by MoneyWise, and a couple other rankings, it was in the top 10. So I'll give Northern Virginia the edge on this one, but Northern Virginia is not like the rest of Virginia. It's much more expensive here to live here than, say, in other areas of the state. So both areas, in my opinion, would be expensive for a retiree to live in. And I personally, I know people move here for retirement. I don't see a ton of that. I have clients that move out of the area towards the Sun Belt, or sometimes I represent buyers buying from retirees moving to Florida or other areas in the South. So I know people move here for retirement, but I see more people moving out of here for retirement just due to the overall cost of the region. Hey guys, I hope that information was helpful for you comparing DC to Northern Virginia. If I missed anything, put it in the comments section below. If you have any questions about your possible move here or maybe your move out of here, feel free to reach out to me directly. My contact information is in the description box below. And until next time, I hope to see you around town.